for maybe two more questions. One more question being said. All right.
Our last question is directed to you, Representative Crow, and the other participants who have served. Do you have a message to veterans of these wars and who served in Afghanistan as you're watching all of this unfold?
Yes, I do. And I appreciate that question very much and the opportunity to address that. I know my colleagues will have things to say as well. This is a very tough time for me and my fellow veterans as we grapple with the meaning of service, the meaning of our friends and our fallen comrades. But the message from me is very clear. Your service mattered. You stood in that long line of Americans who stood up generation after generation to take the oath and to answer the call when your country called for it. And you should be very proud of that, because we are very proud of it. Because if you hadn't done it, somebody else would have had to have done it in your place. You served honorably, shoulder to shoulder. You protected the man and the woman to your right and your left, and you did what you needed to do.
Jason, can I just add one other piece? It's not necessarily directly an answer to that question, but I think we're probably going to be wrapping up soon. I think there's also a lot, and I'd welcome Representative Malinowski's input here, but in a number of former ambassadors and envoys that I've spoken with, that there's much more we could be doing to leverage the NGO community that's still on the ground in terms of them providing the appropriate initial screening, documentation, assurances, insurance guarantees to at least get over that first hurdle. We've been briefed that the SIVs alone, much less the broader populace, are getting a 40 to 50% rejection rate before they get chief of mission approval. Once they get past that, it drops down to 2%. But that initial hurdle is backing up at least 9 to 10,000 Afghans who are desperate to get out. So I think there's others, that capacity that we could leverage on the ground, and the State Department has it within its authority to do so.
That's such a great point. No, go ahead, Tom.
Sure. I mean, the initial screening right now for many of these folks is being done by NGOs, and it's not a security screening. They're not capable of that. It's simply identifying the people who are known to our NGO community to be the human rights leaders in the country, to be the faces of independent journalism in the country, to be the most active and outspoken leaders for women's rights in the country. And there has been a tremendous effort to compile information about those folks, their names, their identifying information, their contact information, and the State Department has all of that. But there's no more screening beyond that can be done in Afghanistan. I mean, at this point, everybody on that list has to go to the airport and be put on a plane and taken somewhere where the more thorough screening and vetting can be done. And there may be people who slip through the cracks of that process who aren't worthy. And there will certainly be people who are worthy who do not make it. But right now we have to do what we can rather than basically for the sake of consistency, tell everybody in Afghanistan that they're out of luck.
Yeah, Tom, I was referring, I absolutely agree, and that's my understanding as well, but to the SIVs in particular, that, are uploading things into a portal, getting rejections, waiting for months, can't get to the embassy, obviously, now for any kind of follow-on of leveraging those entities on the ground, that particularly the ones outside of Kabul, to help at least with that narrow group as well. So that's something that I think state could do. And I know there are a number of NGOs that are reaching out to us willing, and still with folks on the ground willing to do it.
Yep, totally agree. Same principle applies.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mike. Well, we are at time. If there were more questions that we weren't able to get to, please reach out to my office, Meg Spencer, on my team. And I won't speak for the other representatives, but I can say I'm sure they are happy to field follow-up outreach as well. So thank you for joining us. We have time to still do the right thing, but we have to do it today. That is our message. So let's get it done. Thank you all for joining.